Hi everyone, my name is Harrison. Welcome to the 2025 assembly video for the Luxury Pergola. If you bought a prior year version of our pergola, you'll find out real quick which version you bought. If you bought that version, you can find this link up here to figure out how to put yours together. If you bought a version here in 2025, especially this new version, the new bolt and lock assembly with the no exposed fasteners, then you're in the right place. Today we're going to talk about first how to build a frame. That is video number 1. And then video number 2 is going to be talking about putting the louvers together and making sure that everything's operational and you're all set and ready to go. The two of us engineered this product ourselves and tried to make it look as aesthetically pleasing as possible while also being a quick install. That's where we're coming from, and hopefully this is helpful. What you need real quick. Now to get started, we're going to lay out the posts. So open up all the post boxes and the post hardware boxes and lay them out and start putting together your posts. So first step is going to be to assemble the base plate onto the post. Now these holes are pre-tapped. So for the first inch, you're going to find a really easy tap to make sure that the screw finds its thread. And then the last little bit, you'll have a little bit more resistance, a little bit more bite in the second half of the screw. So as you hold it up, you're going to make sure you line up the holes. Start with a corner, top right corner is what I do. Put that screw partially in and then partially put in one of the lower screws on the opposite corner. That will get it so that it's in the right area for the most part. And then I would put in the rest of the 10 other screws partially, and then you can start driving them home. Definitely make sure you don't over tighten these in the socket, 1, and 2, make sure you keep pressure on the bit in the actual pocket of the flathead of the screw, because if you don't, you're going to spiral out that bit and you're going to end up with a strip bit and you're going to ask me for a new 3/16 bit. So make sure that you drive that all the way in, put enough pressure, but don't over tighten it to the point where you accidentally could pop a head off of one of those screws. They're stainless to make sure they're corrosion resistant, but it means they're a little weaker than you would find with like a mild steel, which is why there's 12. Yeah, really, it's true. Once you get to your electrical post and your drainage post will look identical. They're interchangeable. They have this opening right here. This gets covered by the base collar, so don't worry if you don't like the fact that it has that opening on the electrical post. You're going to cut the zip tie that's holding your landscape wire together. You have 50 feet of line here, so the important part there is to just make sure you know how far away your electrical box is from the outlet. You have 9 feet on this side, 50 feet on this side. This box should be somewhere where you plan to use the remote because the transmitter's in there. When you go up the post, if you have a standard post, this is going to be 9 feet to the outlet, and then you have to go another however long half of your longest wall, whatever half of your longest wall where your motor's mounting to, you need half that distance. So in our case, this is a 12 by 20. I need 10 feet on my beam plus 9 feet up the posts, gives me 50 minus 19 that I have left on this spool, and that tells me how far I can put that. Take this guy and you're just going to feed him up the post. And if you notice that it's not coming out, you can either 1, tip the whole post to let it ease it out, or 2, you can take a tape measure and use the hook end on the tape measure to grab the wire and pull it through. Good. And this is where the tape comes in handy. You actually have a measuring device right here on your post. The post itself, I know, is about 10 feet tall because I'm 9 feet here, 9 foot clearance, 10 feet to the total height roughly of the unit. So we go a little bit past the base plate. I know I've got 10 feet on the opposite side of this, plus a little extra here on this 10 inches. It's more than enough. Tape it off to make sure it doesn't get in the way of us putting the beams up, and that makes it a little easier here to go. Now, if you notice all our markings here, we've pre-squared out where we're going to build this unit. The inside corner here to inside corner over there is exactly square, compensating for the unit size. So this is a 20-foot wall. This is a 10 by 10 plate, so it's 1.5 inches in from the 7 inches of this post. So you take 20 feet in this case, minus 7 inches on this side, 7 inches on that side, minus another 1.5 inches, minus 1.5 inches. You can do the same subtractions to find where that point would be right there. And that gives us 18 feet 7 inches, or 223 inches to this edge by 127 inches to that edge. That gives us a square in this case of 21 feet 4 5/8. Make sure that this measurement to the tip of that post base is the exact same measurement as that one to that one. Quick note, pre-squaring makes it way easier when you go to plumb everything. If you have the ability to do it, like if there's things in the way, you may not be able to pre-square, but if you pre-square everything, then you don't have to worry about, like, if your top is perfectly plumb and measuring from square at the top and then square at the bottom, it's a pain. So if you can do this, this makes it way, way easier. So the next step would be to fasten one of these down in place, whichever is your truest reference. So let's say your house is right there, you know you don't want that post to scoot anymore one way or the other, then anchor that down. If you squared everything, you could anchor all of them, but just don't tighten them all the way down because you don't know how many shims you're gonna need to make it all plumb. Makes it way easier to fasten the beams and then anchor it and plumb it. So with the new version of this unit, you don't have to caulk where the gutter meets the beam because they're integrated into one shape, which is fantastic. It makes it super strong and it makes it easier to assemble. The downside is it makes it a little heavier. So just keep that in mind. The 20-foot version here is about 5 pounds of running foot. So you're talking about 100 pounds or a little over 100 pounds because it's a little over 5 pounds of running foot. So just keep that in mind when you go to build this. When you're doing the ladders, be safe, climb up them slowly, and do it with someone who can carry the weight. Don't be like me, wear safety glasses. Okay. And work gloves. To fasten the beam to the post, you're gonna grab screws from the box that's inside of your basic hardware. It says 5/16, 3/4 button head screws, little button head screws, you'll see us use them. You're gonna use those along with the same bit you used for the bottom of the posts here that were in bag A, the 3/16 bit. You're also gonna grab toothed washers. They're hard to miss. They got these ragged teeth on them on both sides. Toothed washers, those are gonna be the ones you're gonna put around each of the button head screws. The teeth do face one specific direction each way, so you'll feel teeth. Those should go down away from the head of the screw. The head of the screw goes on. Smooth part faces the head of the screw. Harsh part faces the threads. I would put these with you in your pocket, whatever, so that you can thread them by hand to get them started to keep the beam in place. And then you'll fasten them in with a right angle driver and an impact driver. So keep in mind that the beam here in that gutter is gonna meet the nose there of the post. We call it a nose. You may have to press into the nose a little bit. It pulls the gutter back to make sure you get a tight fit so that it lines up perfectly flush with the outside of the post. The beam and the post should line up perfectly flush. There's a flange that will match the insert on the beam. You'll see what I mean when we put it up, but just keep in mind if it starts to hold you out a little bit, you might have to put a little bit of You might have to put a little force into it just to make sure you get everything lined up, and then it'll snap into place. If you don't have to depress anything, there's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure it's flush and then tighten it off. So obviously we got the first beam up. Just to reiterate, we highly recommend you anchor all of the posts first before you start putting the walls up. It makes it way easier, more stable, to make sure that it's easier to bring the beams up. You don't have a post that wants to move as you're bringing the beam up. So highly recommend anchor them all first. So now that we got the back wall up, we're gonna put up the other front here, and then we're gonna move on to the rain guards and then put up the two side walls. And we'll get into a whole discussion of rain guards here in a little bit. So on the new product, we have an additional part that's called a rain guard, and the rain guard is only used on certain sizes. Let me explain. So there's a whole chart that's in your install manual, but the reason why you add a rain guard is because our louvers are 7 3/8 inches on center, and they are always on center. So if you end up with, let's say, a size that's just slightly larger than where I can add another louver, I end up with a gap on each side. These rain guards are to help make sure that the rain ends up on the louvers and in the gutters and not on you. So that's what the rain guard is there for. Some sizes need it, some sizes don't. Rain guards are called out specifically for certain sizes, and there's also a position, and that position correlates to the number of rain guards. So position 1 and 2, no rain guards, 3 and 4, 1 rain guard, 5 and 6, 2 rain guards. We'll get into the position here when we get into part 2, where we put the louvers in. Sounds complicated, pretty easy. In this case, a 12 by 20, if you look at the chart, has 2 rain guards. We're gonna start with rain guard 1. If you have 1 rain guard, you only do this one. And then we'll do rain guard 2. If you have 2 rain guards, you'll install this one as well. So now rain guard 1, the one we're building right now, goes on the side that we're opening towards. So if you're closing this way, the rain guard goes on that side for rain guard 1. Side away from the weather seal or the felt that's on all the louvers. So most of the time we tell people, close it towards the north and east. That way they can open it 90 degrees, still get great ventilation and get total shade underneath. So we usually recommend you to close it to the north or to the east. In our case, imagine we're closing this to the east. It's actually west, but imagine we're closing this to the east. That's our closing direction. Rain guard goes on that side for rain guard 1. Rain guard 2 will go on that side. So we're gonna start here with rain guard 1. So the rain guard butts up all the way to the top of the beam for rain guard 1. So the rain guard is oversized by 2 inches total compared to the beam here. This beam is 132 inches. This is 134 inches. So you should have 1 inch coming out on the left, 1 inch coming out on the right. Then you're gonna take the screws from bag D. You're gonna fasten it down with the 5/16 bit that came in bag A. Don't drive it into the insert. It won't work. It's a solid block of aluminum. So stay at least an inch in from this side when you drive close to the ends. You really only need one every 2 feet or so. This is just a splash guard more than anything, and it's pretty thick aluminum for being just a splash guard. So you really only need, in this case, a 12-foot wall. 5 or 6 is more than enough to keep it in place. So one of the things that we are using and we highly recommend, which is why it's in our recommended tools, is to have a clamp, an F-style clamp, like these quick clamps that we use. It just keeps the beam held in as you put the screws in there. That way you're not holding the beam while you're trying to thread the bolt. Very important, because if you lose that bolt, it's falling down the post and you're not getting it back. So definitely make sure that you clamp them in place, holds it there, and then take your time threading the screw. And then an Allen key is my best advice for putting them in. And then a right angle driver if you need to finish it off, especially with these rain guards, you probably will need a right angle driver. Rain guard number 2. It looks like rain guard number 1, except it's oriented differently. The other one had the leg coming down and it was acute like that, facing down. This one is the opposite. Leg is here and it's bowed in like this. And that's because the louver is going to sit right here and open away from it, whereas on the other side, angled down and it rotates below it. So rain guard number 2 is on closing side, where the louver can open away from rain guard number 2. So the holes are going to be placed already in the rain guard. That gives you great positioning. You know where to put your screws already, because you could just set it up there. The bottom of the rain guard should reference to the bottom of this fin here, and then you just go ahead and screw it off. So after you've built your frame, now you're going to drop in your post caps. So you have the top, which is this little thing here. You have the bottom here, and then you have your sleeves. Now your sleeves are just these flat panels. So the way you're going to put it together is you're going to start with one side, and then you're going to drop in your last sleeve. And this is because we wanted it to be as tight against the inside of that post as we possibly could. And so the only way to do that is to kind of build it into the post. So you're going to attach your sleeve to your post cap. Just one for now. Sleeve goes in the front part of your post cap, and then you're going to put your bottom on. And this is if you're going to use a bottom. If you're using the post as a drainage post, then you won't install the bottom yet, leaving it as just 2 sleeves attached to the top. If you do that, you can attach the 2 sleeves and drop the top in at any point in time. If you're putting the bottom on, you're only going to put 1 sleeve on like that, and then you're going to drop the other sleeve in inside the post. Now that you've got this, you can swing it into the post. We ship you 2 packs of composite shims. I already cut this one open. They look like that. Composite shims are great for shimming. So when you square everything, you also have to make sure the posts are plumb or straight up and down, especially if you're attaching a drop shade. This needs to be plumb, and they both need to be plumb and correct in relation to one another. So when you go to plumb it, you're going to need to make sure that these are loose again. If you tighten them for any reason, make sure they're loose again. And then what you're going to end up doing is hammering these underneath, checking with a level, and making sure that you end up with a plumb. Bubble needs to be in the middle. We highly recommend a 72-inch level, or longer if you're crazy. but a 72-inch level should be plenty. Oh, good. So it's plumb, and you're done. After you shim it, then you need to tighten the bolts. So base color is to decorate this stainless base plate so that it looks nicer and not so mill finish stainless. So it'll come to you in a package in your post hardware box. You should have, if you have 4 post hardware boxes. If you have 3 post hardware boxes. The hardware box will include the base collar and the corner keys that you need. You're gonna have 8 of these nylon corner keys and 4 of these. What I would do is make sure you have 2 keys on each. So 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, and 2 there, like so. You're gonna assemble first a U, and then you're gonna slide the last one on at the end. So first put in your 4 on each side. Now you can do any number of things. You can do it by hand. Now I highly recommend you wear gloves at this point. I know I haven't been following my own rule, but this gets pretty sharp, very, very sharp. It's 45 degrees, very precise 45 degrees. You're gonna wanna hammer that in till it bottoms out. Make sure you hammer it close to the top of the corner key, not out here on the leg, because then you're just gonna bend it. There's 2. You can do 2 more. Another one. Now you just need 1 more like that. Jim, Paul, the dog, all the keys. Huh? Now you're gonna start them together like that, and then nice and easy, equal sides, pressure there, pressure there, 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 there. Now this one, I still got a little bit to go. Nice, clean corner. That's what you're looking for. Now you take the other one, finish off your U. Boom. There's your U. Now you slide your U onto your post like so. And then line up your corner keys again. I like to start them a little bit by hand. And then here comes the squeaky one if you're on concrete. Make sure you're looking at all 4 corners. One base collar, 3 more to go. So you think you're done with the frame, you're not yet. The last step here is to caulk the corners. Now the best part about this new design is the gutter's integrated, so you don't have to caulk this whole perimeter. You just have to caulk the corners. There's an illustration you'll see here on the screen where you can see exactly where to put a bead of caulk. You'll also find inside your basic hardware box a small backer rod that you will use to make sure you fill between the 2 gutters. So that way you make sure that you get a nice seal all the way through the inside there, up each of those legs, all the way in that back corner, and you get a nice sealed corner so no water gets down your post. So now that the caulk is done, you are done with the frame. Check out our videos up here if you bought any accessories like our center beam. Definitely want to install the center beam before you move on to part 2 and install the louvers. So check that out up above. And now on to part 2.